Okay, we're ready. Go ahead.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to call the meeting to order for the Oxnard City Council Public Works and Transportation Committee meeting, a regular meeting, 11 o'clock for July, June 14th. And Madam, Ms. City Clerk, could you please read the statement from the state?
This meeting is held pursuant to the State Emergency Services Act, the Governor's Emergency Declaration, and Governor's Executive Order N-2920 to allow members of the City Council or staff to participate via teleconference. Pursuant to the Ventura County Public Health Officials Order and Governor's Executive Order N-3320, all city buildings are temporarily closed to the public. The public is encouraged to view the meeting from home on the city's website at oxnard.org/city-meetings, Spectrum Channel 10, Frontier Channel 35, or YouTube at youtube.com/OxnardNews. Video recordings are typically available online immediately following the meeting. The public may provide comments to the City Council via email at cityclerk@oxnard.org no later than 8 a.m. on the day of the meeting. Please identify the committee name, meeting date, and agenda items in the email subject line. A telephone option for public comments is also available at this time due to the State of California stay-at-home order. Requests to speak must be submitted no later than 8 a.m. on the day of the meeting. Use the form on the city's website to submit your request, oxnard.org/city-meetings, or call the city clerk's office at 805-385-7803 to email your request to cityclerk@oxnard.org. Would you like me to take the roll at this time too?
Yes, please. And thank you very much for reading that, Madam City Clerk.
Sure thing. Member Flynn.
Present.
Member McDonald.
Here.
Chair Perrello.
Here.
Chair, we have a quorum, and the agenda for this meeting was posted in the City Hall kiosk on Tuesday, July 7th.
Okay, thank you. And Brian, Councilmember McDonald, can you lead us on the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Sure, if you'd stand and place your hand over your heart, follow me in saluting the flag of our nation by saying, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We have so far one speaker for public comments not on the agenda, Ms. Lucy Cartagena. We're calling her, I believe.
Yes.
For Families First. Please leave a message and I will return your call.
Okay, so she didn't pick up.
Okay, I'll tell you what, instead of calling her a second time right now, at the end of the meeting, we'll give her a call, one more shot.
Okay.
Okay, and I have no other speakers, correct?
Right.
Okay, moving on to the consent agenda, the City Clerk's Department, the approval of the minutes, the recommendation. The Public Works and Transportation Committee approved the minutes for the June 23rd, 2020 regular meeting as presented. We had an opportunity to read the minutes of the meeting, committee members.
I have, and I'd move approval.
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Member Flynn?
Aye.
Member McDonald?
Yes.
Chair Perrello?
Yes.
The motion carries 3-0.
Moving on to item D, reports. Public Works Department, subject, second amendment to agreement A-7974 with the County of Ventura for work release program. If we could have the member giving the report, read the recommendation.
Good afternoon. I guess it's still morning. Chair Perrello and committee members. My name is Jerry Cooper, project manager for Special Assessment Districts. Today we are recommending that the Public Works and Transportation Committee recommend that the City Council approve and authorize the mayor to execute a second amendment to the agreement A7974 with the County of Ventura for, in the amount of $235,000 for a new not-to-exceed amount of $925,000 to extend the contract term to July 18th, 2020, July 18th, 2020 to July 18th, 2021. And this is for the county's work release program for city work. So a little bit of background on this contract. The city began working with the county work release program in 2009. They assist us with multiple tasks, both in the Parks Division, Streets Division, and within special districts, including medians, weed abatement, debris removal, and special projects. Each division within Public Works collaborates with the county's probation agency to schedule and utilize these crews to help supplement services that we already provide through the city. July 18th, 2017, the council approved the agreement between the city and the county for a 3-year term for $540,000. There was a first amendment approved on December 4th, 2018 in the amount of $150,000. And we are asking for that second amendment currently, adding the value of $253,000 with a not to exceed of $925,000 and extending the contract through July 18th of 2021. Currently, the contract is expiring on July 18th, 2020. Currently, we are not utilizing any work release crews at this time because of COVID. However, the county has indicated to us that they will be allowing work release crews to begin again here within the next month. It has been a very beneficial program to multiple divisions within Public Works because, again, they help us to mitigate weeds and work in our alleys to collect debris. There was the second amendment will get us through the fiscal year 2021 budget. And again, the amendment is for $235,000 to extend to July 18th, 2021. Each division has budgeted within their fiscal year 2021 budget, and the funds will be allocated based on assigned task. So if there is not a need, the finances will not be assigned to the task through each division, streets, parks, and special districts. As you can see, the fiscal impact and our spending plan for this year. Currently, the Parks Division has a $20,000 budget for fiscal year 2021 for Measure O and College Park. They only anticipate spending $10,000 within that budget. The Parks Division for Trees and Medians has $50,000 budgeted, and they anticipate spending about $20,000 of that budget this year. Special Districts has various budgets throughout a number of our community facilities districts and landscape maintenance district. Our anticipated spending is about $90,000 throughout special districts. Streets has $75,000 through their Measure O funding budgeted for this year, and they anticipate spending that full $75,000. Other Public Works divisions that may utilize this contract as well have about $40,000 budgeted and anticipate spending that $40,000 for a total of $235,000 for the second amendment. And with that, I am happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, Ms. Cooper. Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers on this item?
No, we don't.
Thank you. Committee members, do you have any comments or questions?
I do, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Ms. Cooper, could you put that spending plan back up that you just went over, please? So I'll kind of get started just to try to make my comments brief and get through the next item. I guess my concern about this, while the Ms. Cooper and the city clerk working together, they get this item up, is you know, there is the available budget, and then there's the spending plan, and I'm a little bit kind of mystified by that. I'm not mystified about streets because the available budget 75,000 and the spending plan 75,000. The public works, other public works divisions, once again, 40 and 40, I believe it is, yes. And but the mystery here is the areas that we arguably, you know, need just as strongly are the Parks Division, trees and medians. The budget is here for fiscal year 2021, 50,000, but we're only spending 40% of that. The recommended spending plan is 20,000. I mean, for goodness sakes, we need to spend even more than what the available budget has. And so I'm concerned about that, members of the committee. And then the other one is the Measure O College Park Division. 20,000 is available in the budget, but we're only spending half. Ms. Cooper, could you address that? Why are we only spending half and 40% in those two categories?
Mayor, I do have Assistant Public Works Director Brian Yanez here, and he can answer that question for you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chair, committee members. Brian Yanez, Assistant Public Works Director. This year on this budget, we've showed the available budget that we have in those line items, which is 8209 professional services. However, there's other services that are needed in the available budget. So I cannot afford to utilize the full amount of the budget for the work release program. So therefore, those budgets are only using a certain amount that is allocated for work release. So the Park Division for Measure O College Park is 10,000. The trees and medians is 20,000 because, for example, in 8209 we have other services. For example, we have backflow testing, we have tree contract services, and those kind of things that come out of that professional service line item. So all we have is enough for work releases, that $20,000. Hopefully that explains your question.
Yeah, yes, it does. I just want to say to, well, Mr. Yanez, now that you're on there, it just kind of a final question. You and I have had a conversation about how the gas tax money is spent, and that you know, just obviously the gas tax money is spent on streets and roadways, and that if in fact we wanted to take a small portion of that gas tax money and devote more money to streets and medians and maintenance of these areas that have been left unattended. And I just want to stop and say, you know, I think my fellow committee members have seen this. If you go along the railroad tracks on Oxnard Boulevard, right by where the sports park is supposed to go, that's starting to get really wild over there, and wild in terms of plant growth. And I look at so many other areas that get a lot of complaints about Highway 1 and the way the roadsides look off of Highway 1 and what's happening. I think members of the committee, they know just as much as I know, and they get the same kinds of emails, Mr. Yanez, is that as the vegetation is growing and not being taken care of, then whether it's from the homeless or from just blowing around, trash now is accumulating in those areas. So we all know we have a deficit in that, a deficit for, you know, of meeting the needs. So that's very clear. But I just want to stress that, Mr. Yanez, that I don't know, it's always a balance, that what you said to me is if we took money away from streets in any way, from the gas tax funds, then obviously some projects could be delayed and things of that nature. But it kind of sounds sometimes almost like an either or, kind of like, oh my God, if we took an extra 10,000 or 20,000 from the gas tax, I mean, you know, that's going to stop, you know, it makes it sound like, you know, it from a public policy standpoint, that it's not a wise decision, because we know the streets are more important than the roadways. So how do you respond to that, Mr. Yanez?
That's yeah, we did have conversations about utilizing gas tax for some road work and landscaping maintenance along the medians and parkways. However, this year our street and gas tax took a large hit. I don't have the number off the top of my head, but it was more than $1 million from the COVID. And at this point, we were struggling to come up with our budget for streets division, and we did have to utilize some of the monies that was in our projects to balance that deficit with this, for this fiscal year. So, you know, that's just a budgetary question that we can plan for in future budget years, but this year wasn't the year to do it with such a deficit in our gas tax.
I understand. And Mr. Yanis, last question on the, you know, just the work release program. Let me just think this through. So the work release program is, we're kind of getting more bang for the buck. Is that fair enough to say with the work release program with the county?
That's very, very fair to say. I believe the daily cost for a crew is $540, $550, and they do a tremendous amount of work in a day for that amount of money. Where there's no contractor or no staff crew can beat that. So the amount of people that they have on site is just a tremendous benefit to us to take care of some of the areas that we can't get to throughout the year.
And Mr. Yanis, these areas I've mentioned, some of the more visible areas like entering into the city, say on 5th Street or Oxnard Boulevard and some of these main thoroughfares, are those, now that the work release program is going to resume, are those the areas that we're going to be targeting to have them maintain that and clean that up, as well as Highway 1?
Definitely Highway 1 is one of the locations that Streets Division uses the work release program. The weeds that you mentioned on Oxnard Boulevard are in the railroad right-of-way. We've been trying to have conversations with them to take care of their right-of-way there. But there are several areas in the community that the work release program and that we utilize that are large issues or large areas. But Highway 1 is definitely one.
And last question is on that railroad issue, and our most involved person with the railroads is committee member and council member McDonald. Is it a case where in the past where we have to get their authorization for our crews to go in and clean it up, or is it their responsibility to clean it up? I mean, the fact that we have to ask them permission indicates that they should be cleaning it up. Is that correct?
It was over a year ago that we did not abide by their agreement. Their agreement charged us to go onto their property to clean their property.
Holy moly.
So since we did not do that, they have not maintained their areas. I just don't have the staff to go out and maintain an area and also pay to maintain an area to the railroad company.
Well, Mr. Chair and committee member McDonald, and in no way would I ever want to step on committee member McDonald's feet on this issue, or any council member for that matter. I just think that we as council members need to do something to facilitate that. I know that the railroads can be a challenge when, as an example, we have graffiti in a certain location. Well, we can't remove it. Sometimes we have to tell people because we have to get permission first. So I don't know what the input is by the committee members, but I hope to goodness we can, you know, if it means, I just want to be part of the solution. If it means writing a letter, or the council writing a letter, or our committee member who has the most extensive experience with this, writing that letter, and I would sign, you know, I don't care how it is. I just want to be part of the solution. So I just want to say that to my fellow committee members. Thank you, Mr. Yanis, for that. It does seem absolutely absurd, committee members, that we have to get permission to pay to clean up somebody else's areas, if that's accurate.
Mr. Mayor, this is the city manager. I'm sorry, you're off the agenda item now.
Okay, all right.
Sorry.
Mr. Chair.
Okay. One second, Brian, if you'll indulge me, please, just 1 second. Mayor, I do not want to step on Mr. McDonald's toes no more than you do, but I will stand side by side with Mr. McDonald if there is need be to go with the railroads. You're absolutely right. There's no way we should be bent over like that. Go ahead, Mr. McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to support or echo Mr. Yanis' comments. With this whole pandemic, sales tax is down, gas tax revenue is down, ridership is down on a variety of transportations, including the trains, and the economic stream is just not there to support a lot of the stuff that we would ordinarily support out of different revenue pots. You know, certainly I will reach out to my peers at Union Pacific, and I won't say any more than that at this point because it's not really on the agenda, but we're all suffering from this pandemic, not just the city of Oxnard, and we're potentially grasping at money that just isn't there or won't be there. And so I do support this program. I think I've used this program at several facilities that I've managed out of Camarillo Airport or been involved with at Camarillo Airport. And in talking with the crews that come out there, they appreciate being able to work on projects instead of having to serve time in a confinement facility. So this really is a benefit to a lot of people within the program. They do excellent work, and they are very cost effective. So I would support this and move the recommended action. And
I'll second that, and I want to, in my motion, I want to state clearly, I support what Councilman McDonald, Committee Member McDonald just had to say, not only about the financial situation, but the viability, availability, and the I think altruism that comes out of being able to get these workers out of their confinement, have them be part of the solution. And I think work is not harmful to anyone unless, again, they're not able to work for some reason. So thank you. I second that motion.
And I'd just like to make a comment, and I support this also, so I'm pretty sure we know which way the vote's going. But I just want to make a comment. As a kid growing up in this area, I remember that in downtown Oxnard, there used to be work crews, and they had blue uniforms, coveralls with a big P on the back, and they were prisoners, and they were doing the work. It was a lesson that parents used and teachers used to keep kids out of hot water. You know, you mess around, you're going to be doing that kind of stuff. I support this. It's a good use of people that are incarcerated. It's a good use for the public to see that they're getting something other than housing somebody with 3 meals and a free meal and a cot and a shower. There's also the opportunity for them to earn some funds to pay back restitution, I believe. But one of the things that I would like to have clarified as we move forward, the original agreement indicated that these prisoners would be used in River Park. Is there use now of the prisoners throughout the city of Oxnard? And the second is, with respect to the trees, and the mayor had questioned this budget that we approved was because of the requirements to try to make and stretch as far as we could. That's why there were monies put in available budget, but the spending plan, we're trying to tighten our belts. And when we have somebody, you know, like you sometimes we all do, we all indulge, and every once in a while you got to move the notch on the belt a little bit wider. You ate too much. We're trying to keep that belt tight so that we live within our means. We don't go and beyond our means, as a member of the public said a few days ago at a council meeting. With respect to the monies in the budget and the opportunity for gas tax or whatever there is, we need to remember that every time we start touching, we are messing with what we have planned to try to get by and convince the public that we're trying to do as frugal and as good a job to give them the benefits that they need, and we're obligated as council members to look for. But a question, and I hope I get an answer. The work release program, 2 questions. Is it mostly geared for River Park? And the second question that I get when people don't realize that they're work release, that they're prisoners, is are there hardened criminals in this? And I doubt there are, but if we could have somebody address that. And again, thank you for the presentation. Thank you, Mr. Yannis. Thank you, Mr. Cooper. But I'd appreciate those 2 questions and then a vote, please.
So the question about the budget, there are various districts that are utilizing work release for special districts, and River Park is one of them. Do you know which line I think that was? The 174 is the 20,000 for River Park, but there's, like I said, there's other LMDs in the special district. Again, if we had more money in some of these line items, for example, the trees and medians, we would utilize the work release definitely more for some of our areas that we need in town to maintain. And to answer your question, are they hard criminals? They are supervised by the probation officers. I'm not sure the status of each individual that comes out to provide services. That is who the probation county work release program brings out, and we don't know the backgrounds of any of these participants.
Okay, thank you very much.
Chair, I can respond to your second question about
Sure.
whether or not they're dangerous people. They are not dangerous people. They are very well screened by probation agency before they're admitted into this program, and they are not a threat to public safety or the community.
Thank you very much for clarifying that. Thank you, Councilman McDonald. Okay, Madam Clerk, can we take a roll call vote, please?
Member Flynn.
Aye.
Member McDonald.
Yes.
Chair Perillo.
Yes.
The motion to approve carries 3-0.
The next item, D2, the subject, Public Works Department again, subject, purchase order to Fastenal Company for personal protective equipment for the Environmental Resources ER Division. We could have the staff person read the recommendation, please.
Yes, good morning, Chair Perillo and committee members. Todd Vasquez, Housley, Environmental Resources Division Manager. Today, we're asking the committee to recommend that the City Council authorize the City Manager to execute a purchase order with Fastenal Company for an amount not to exceed $200,000 for a 3-year term for personal protective equipment, which I will refer to as PPE from here on. Quick background on this subject. The Environmental Resources Division employs 173 staff members. Those are full-time approved positions. The work includes driving trucks, sorting trash, cleaning up homeless encampments, and several other parts of the operation that deal with very dangerous equipment and potential for exposure of biohazards and other things in the waste stream. The PPE is used to protect all of our employees from those risks. Next slide shows that the refuse and recycling industry ranks as the 5th most dangerous occupation nationwide. This is consistent going back at least 10 years. Again, common exposure risk include airborne particles, loud noise, vibration, slip hazards, and the list goes on, and most recently, COVID is added to that list. So we do plan for these eventualities, and every now and then we get new challenges. PPE requirements are established by federal OSHA and California OSHA as well. The MRF, we exceed those minimum requirements through our permit and our transfer protocol report to ensure that we are protecting our customers and employees beyond what the minimums are. We currently distribute PPE. It's a person-to-person transaction, and it's based on the level of risk associated with their job classification. With what we're trying to do here with this item, it's a little innovative. We're looking for more efficiency and accountability. With 173 staff, dealing with PPE on a person-to-person basis can be cumbersome. So in addition to the PPE requirements, we're going to introduce a vending machine system that allows employees to access the PPE 24/7, and we get records of that use and reports daily if needed. So in order to get here, we went through a Sourcewell procurement, cooperative procurement program. The city benefits through this on many different levels, and you've seen that in other presentations. PPE items are marked down more than 20% off the manufacturer's suggested retail price, which also benefits the budget. And this service will now include vending machines, stocking of inventory, tracking, and repairing of machines. Financial impact, we're looking at $66,666 per year. That's $200,000 for the 3 years. And we will, of course, request funds in subsequent fiscal year budgets. That's the end of my presentation. I can take any questions you have at this point.
Thank you very much, Mr. Housley. Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers on this item?
No, we don't.
Thank you. Board members, do you have any questions or comments?
I just have a quick question for Mr. Housley, Chair Perillo.
Go ahead.
Mr. Housley, thank you for the presentation. I know that the PPE for us and for all agencies and just period for the public and agencies and first responders and everything, that the PPE has been a real challenge. But with this purchase order and, recommendation that, to the council that this be purchased. Is that going to adequately, you said for a 3-year term for personal protective equipment. So does that kind of, at this point, eliminate that need in your division for, to assure, I guess, the council and the staff and everything of all the staff members you have, that they have the best PPE and that they can perform their duties uninterrupted?
That's true, Mayor. We want to give them a protection that's beyond whatever the minimums are, and we've consistently done that. As you know, COVID has given us new challenges. We're not able to reuse PPE as much. We're using more for specific reasons. That went into the budget calculation for this item. And what I like about this agreement is it allows 24/7 access to our employees through an employee ID number through a vending machine system. So there's no waiting around for a supervisor, or there's no lost time of work because somebody ran out of something. So we believe that this will be much more efficient, cost-effective, and be a benefit to the employees who do use the PPE commonly.
Okay, thank you.
Committee Member McDonald, do you have any questions?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you very much for the report. A couple of questions. The vending machine is going to be entered in. There's no cost out of pocket to the employee. He simply uses his track.
That's correct. There is no cost for any PPE at any time for our employees. That, as employees of the city, they are covered. That's part of the covenants of the union agreements and of how we operate.
A question recently that I've been made aware of, the refuse truck drivers, are they required to wear the mask while they're driving the vehicle on the route? I do understand that they are required to wear the mask if there's 2 individuals in the truck. But if they're doing their route and the windows are up, I don't know if the air conditioning works or if it's on. Are they required to wear their masks when they're driving their route by themselves?
When they're alone in a vehicle, currently not required under all of the provisions from the state level. However, as you said, if 2 people are in the vehicle, they both must wear the masks. However, we do recommend that even though it's not required, that they continue to wear it, because beyond COVID, there's particulates, there's other areas that we need to encourage them to protect themselves from.
Thank you. And I'd just like to point this out to the other committee members. On the slides, again, if you could remember to anyway, the first slide that showed the pictures of the refuse and the recycling material in the bays, sometimes it appears from looking and having been in the viewing observatory of the refuse, it appears to be dark. I'm wondering, is there an opportunity to get more light in that facility? Or do the buildings or the lights have to be washed or cleaned off? And I know that's not on the subject, but sometime in the future, I think that needs to be addressed. Do we have a recommended action on this item, committee members?
Recommend the action?
Yeah.
Second.
Okay, roll call vote, please, Madam Clerk.
Member Flynn,
Aye.
Member McDonald,
Yes.
Chair Perella.
Yes.
The motion carries 3-0.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Housley, for the presentation.
Thank you.
The next up is number 3, D3 under reports. The subject, an update on the mandatory organics recycling program, abbreviated MORE, including options for various uses of the material recycling facility. And if we could have staff, please give the recommendation as the item is presented. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a big deal. They all were, but this is a big deal.
All right, good morning, Honorable Chair and members of the committee. My name is Damian Skinner. I'm the one of the assistant public works directors. Today I'm going to give an update on the mandatory organic recycling program and provide development options for various uses at the material recycling facility. We are recommending that the Public Works and Transportation Committee receive an update on the mandatory organic recycling program, including options for various uses at the material recycling facility, and provide feedback and direction. Today I'm going to cover the regulations that govern organic waste. I'm going to provide a summary the City Organics Waste Recycling Program, provide options for organic waste processing at the Del Norte adjacent property, and development considerations at the Del Norte adjacent property. So the regulations. So Assembly Bill 32, the California Global Warming Solutions Act of 2006, established objectives to reduce greenhouse gas emissions to 1990 levels by 2020. AB 32 is umbrella legislation that paved the way for other implementation legislation, a couple that govern organic waste, such as Assembly Bill 1826, the Mandatory Commercial Organics Recycling Law. That identified methane gas from decomposing organics in landfill as a potent greenhouse gas. Organics make up more than 1/3 of the material in landfills, and the law requires businesses generating more than 4 cubic yards of solid waste per week and multifamily residential dwellings of more than 5 units to recycle organic waste. Senate Bill 1383 expands on 1826. It's a short-lived climate pollutants, organic waste methane emissions reduction bill, and it set the goal of reducing organics by 50% by this year and 75% by 2025. It also requires single-family homes to recycle organics, and the benchmark for this reduction is the 2014 base year. A little bit about the city's program. So we collect an average of 21,316 tons of green waste per year. Last year we collected 838 tons of food waste. And there are 29 businesses out of the 1,960 customers that we serve that meet AB 1826 requirements that are recycling their organics. So obviously there's a lot of room to grow the program. We're estimating that we need 57,000 tons per year processing capacity if we had full program participation. We currently have a contract with Agriman to process green waste at $50 per ton and $90 per ton for food waste. The processed material is sold as compost by Agriman, but we receive no credit for that. So here we're going to go over some options for processing at the Del Norte adjacent property. Option one, we can utilize a private compost facility to process organics, basically continue what we're doing. Option two, we could pre-process food waste for digestion at the Oxnard wastewater treatment plant and compost green waste off-site using a private facility. And then we have two enhanced composting options. Option three, in-vessel composting, and option four, covered static pile aeration composting. So option one, utilize a private compost facility. So we could continue to use Agriman or a like facility to process green waste and food waste for an annual cost of $1.15 million per year. And then we build a storage area for additional bin and equipment needed to grow the program. And we think we need about an acre to do that. So we'll push out the adjacent Del Norte site into the vacant property. Here we have an aerial view of that. You can see on the right is the MRF, and then on the left is the adjacent property. The hash mark is the approximate 1 acre we would take to build a storage area. The remaining site would be available for other development opportunities. Some pros for this option. It's scalable in the short term. There's only incremental cost increase to grow the organic recycling program. And then the majority of the site would be available for other development. Some cons is the limited cost control. The city's bound to a vendor for processing organics. And then the state law legislation that I mentioned prior, the 1826 and 1383, competing with increased demand from other municipalities for limited processing capacity. I could just say that in my previous jobs, I worked for Culver City and my counterpart in Santa Monica. We both we're both in West LA, and we both used Agriman for processing organics. So we traveled a far distance just to find a place or home for those cities' organics. So the demand is going to be a big deal. Option two, we could pre-process food waste for digestion at the Oxnard wastewater treatment plant. So we'd construct a food waste processing facility using the vacant space. We have 8.8 acres available. But however, this is only for food waste, so we'd have to utilize a private compost facility to compost green waste offsite. Oh, okay, thank you. Oh, there it is, yeah. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you.
Yeah,
for
yeah.
It makes a big difference, at least
All
for
right.
this guy.
So this is going to make, yeah, as I get into the process diagram on the next slide, this will make a big difference. Okay, so if we're going to pre-process food waste using the adjacent lot, what does that look like? So the food waste would come in bags from their stores, and then they would go into this feeder where the bags are broken and opened up, and the food waste is kind of mulched up into a homogeneous mixture. It goes into an extrusion press where it it does some dewatering, and then the extruded material then goes into a polishing and dilution facility where it makes a perfect mixture, or this emulsion here, this beaker.
Sir, may I have a question, please, before you go?
Okay.
When you had the feedstock, the previous slide, the second step, is that manually required to open up those bags and put that in there?
No, this is there are many processes available, but the ones that I think we would be looking at is similar to this one, where it'd be an automatic process.
Because that would be one of the most
Especially,
unpleasant world, I would think, right there.
yeah,
Okay,
exactly, and especially when we're looking at a higher throughput, an automatic process is going to be absolutely necessary.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, and then I want to highlight this beaker because it also shows up on the next slide. So let's just continue the process flow diagram. So here's the beaker again. So once we have the emulsion from the pre-processing at ER, that would go to the wastewater treatment plant, whereas along with sludge and fats, oils, and grease will go into a anaerobic digester. The digester is heated, which creates methane that goes to a combustion engine. That engine releases heat and electricity. The heat goes back to warm the digester, and the electricity is used for powering the plant. Our preliminary evaluation shows that we could do 30 days. It's a 30-day digestion process, and 40 tons of food waste could be processed per week, and generate 273,000 kilowatt hours per year, with a savings of 27,300 per year. Some pros for this option is that we produce more digested gas to generate electricity, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, some cost control because now we have vertical integration with our business process, and the ability to accept food waste from other cities. Some cons: it's going to be a significant capital investment of a new facility, and also we still need to secure a private facility to process our green waste. So option 3, in-vessel composting. This process can convert green waste and food waste into soil amendment by a biological process. Compost is created in a very short period of time, 8 to 10 weeks, compared to traditional composting, which takes 3 to 6 months. And we can process 35,000 tons per year of organics on 4 acres. So that works out to be about 8,750 tons per acre. Looking at, this is an example of an in-vessel composter. It's a completely sealed system. Organics are put in. It can completely regulate heat and moisture, and also turns the mixture. And this is an example of the material that's at the end of the process. We're estimating that to maximize the amount of throughput for organics, for not only for the MRF, but as a regional player, we're estimating we'll need the entire site, as shown by the aerial. And some pros and cons. Pros is it's a much quicker process than traditional composting. It's able to compost any type of organic waste. It doesn't have the limitation as the digestion process. Composting process is completely enclosed, which mitigates odors, ability to accept organic waste from other cities, and it produces a marketable compost. Cons is that it requires a significant capital investment. It requires energy to run, and there's no energy recovery. Okay, we get into our final option here, covered static pile aeration. Similar to in vessel, it's a conversion of green waste and food waste into soil amendment by a biological process. Compost is created in 8 to 12 weeks compared to the traditional 3 to 6 months. And on this option, we could process 45,000 tons per year of organics on 2 acres of land. So looking at the photos here, we show a windrow on top of these white pipes. Those pipes are there to blow air, warm air into the windrows. Then the windrow is covered to trap heat and moisture, which speeds the composting process. Pros for this option is it's a much quicker process than traditional composting. Composting process is enclosed, which mitigates odors. It's a smaller footprint and allows more processing capacity per acre. We have the ability to accept organic waste from other cities, and again, it produces marketable compost. Cons, again, is that it's a capital investment of a new facility. It requires energy to run. There's no energy recovery, and it's not a completely sealed system like in vessels, so it may allow odors to escape. So here we get to some development considerations at the Del Norte adjacent property. So the property would be adjacent to the MRF, and we'd be subjected to odor and very welcoming and excessive birds. And a standalone facility, if we were to do something completely separate from the MRF would require 10 acres for in-vessel composting and about 15 acres for static pile aeration. So if it was completely standalone, where there's no sharing of resources with the MRF, that's what it would take. And I got this information from SES Engineers. They are a consulting firm that specializes in composting, and these are some quick and dirty figures they provided for this presentation. However, you know, the 8.8 acres available is sufficient if there was to be a standalone traditional recycling facility. So we have some possibilities for development that are not related to waste management and recycling. That the property could be used for warehouse and distribution, refrigeration, cold storage. It could be a telecom, data, and housing center, an R&D building, showroom, or other industrial opportunities that we have not explored. So there's a lot of options there. So what are the next steps? So we're going to conduct a feasibility study and a pilot program to determine the capital and operation costs and digester capacity. And we're applying for an EPA grant to fund the feasibility study, but it'll go forward whether or not we get the grant or not. Just a little bit about the grant we're applying for. The deadline is actually today. The max grant award is $300,000. Per the grant, the estimated project start date would be October 1st, and the grant provides 2 years to complete the project, but we believe we can get it done in 9 months. Additional next steps is that we conduct a cost-benefit analysis for all the options. I'll report study results and recommended most beneficial option to the Public Works and Transportation Committee for comments and direction, and then we'll take the committee outcome to the City Council. There is no financial impact related to receiving this presentation. And that concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your...
Mr. Chair, if I can make some comments.
I'll recognize you first, but I just got a question. If we can go back to the second to the last slide, please. It says the application deadline is today. Do we need the full council approval on this before we move with an application? And if so, what are we doing today with the committee?
No, we do not need council approval to go forward with the grant.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the staff for bringing this forward. I've been asking for this for a while, and I know it was kind of a complex issue. And some of the background behind this is we have a mandate for reducing our food waste into the waste stream, or getting it out of the waste stream. And in doing a little bit of discussing with, I was approached by one person who is interested in submitting that proposal to the city to build essentially a huge blender on about 2 acres south of the MRF that would take all of the food waste products, make it into a slurry, and then they would transport it down to the wastewater treatment facility, which has, I think, 3 biodigesters, if I remember correctly. We just approved getting a third one fixed and operational not too long ago. So we have all the infrastructure available to digest this food waste material. It's just a matter of taking it from its raw form, put it into a slurry, and then transport it down to the wastewater treatment plant. And I'd really like to see if we can take a look at, is this a more cost-effective way of doing this instead of dealing with Agriment? Because not that Agriment is a bad company, but there are transportation costs in getting it out to their other facility. So I'm looking for economy of scale, doing it locally and doing it perhaps more efficiently. In regards to other uses of that MRF property, I've also been approached by a recycling facility that would be interested in primarily aluminum and plastic recycling that might work hand in hand with the MRF, I don't know. And then there's also an interest in creating a battery farm. And if you haven't heard of battery farms, that's kind of the new wave of energy efficiency. And especially in that area, it's near, I believe it's the Colonia sub for Edison. There are groups that are looking at siting battery farms on property where during the day when, or during the night when demand is low, they charge the batteries up, and then during the day, the stored energy from those batteries can be pumped back into the grid if there's a higher peak need during the daytime. And that seems to be the newest approach that energy companies are using for a lot of stuff. So there's a lot of interest in that particular property. So my goal here was to hopefully stimulate some discussion between us and outside entities that, can, through an RFP or something of that nature, to see if we can fully utilize the, I know the people that want to do the food waste recycling said they need about a 2-acre parcel. It's not a huge amount of property. The battery farm, I think, would probably need a 1 or 2 acre parcel. So that still leaves us about 4 acres, or even 6 acres, depending on how it's divided up, that we could better utilize instead of just having plain dirt out there. So I appreciate all of staff efforts doing this. I appreciate the report. I think there's a lot of opportunity here, and I would certainly hope that we would encourage the city and staff to pursue reaching out, and certainly if they need any names of people that I can refer to them who I've been having discussions with, I'd be happy to do that too. But I would like to see us take advantage of several opportunities that are here now. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilman McDonald. I forgot to ask, Madam Clerk, are there any public comments on this?
No, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Flynn, do you have any comments or questions? Mayor Flynn.
Mayor, we can't hear you, even though it looks like you are unmuted. You may have to sign out and sign back in again really quickly.
Okay, while he's doing that, I'll go with my questions. I support the request for this grant to look into the various options. I am a bit concerned if we make a commitment for the property with another entity, the serving on the sanitation district as a representative for the city of Oxnard, the rules are getting tighter and tighter and tighter with respect to what we do with the waste that is collected. They want less and less going into a landfill. More and more has to be recycled. There's an opportunity for large firms to make, there's nothing wrong with a profit, but those profits are coming at the cost of the ratepayers for the city of Oxnard. If we can do some things in-house, I think that that's a very good thing to consider. One of the issues, the tremendous cost involved in blending the food waste and the green waste and all that kind of stuff. I'd rather not be the first guy to buy the brand new model car. I want somebody else to do that and make sure this works out. We have an example at the Toland landfill where we tried something, it didn't work out. They deserve a lot of credit for trying, but it didn't work out, and people get their fingers burned when a financial deal doesn't work as well as it should have, and there's a cost involved, and everybody wants to continually bring that up. But I do not think that we should lose the opportunity to hold this land so that if we go in that direction based on what our findings are, how the economy turns and everything else, because one of the indications on that land, if you can put the slide back up showing the overall view, there's a rail line there. And if we can bring trash from other communities, if there's not a problem with the city of Oxnard bringing material from other communities, we'd have a rail spur there right at our site, right next door. And it could be beneficial. And in the past, and I know it's getting a bit off subject, there's been discussion about potentially taking a rail spur to the Tolan landfill. How that would work, I'm not sure, but there was a discussion. I like the idea that we're looking forward, and I also like the idea that Public Works is giving us multiple options. It's good to have an option. It's never good to just have plan A and then God help us if it doesn't work. So I appreciate the presentation. The gentleman, the new Assistant City Manager, Assistant Public Works Director, thank you very much. We'll get back to Mayor Flynn. Do you have any questions or comments?
Yes, I do. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay. Well, first of all, I like the comments of both Committee Member McDonald and his talk about, economy of scale and talking about the best way that we can approach this. I want to say that for years, the Del Norte, the empty lot next to the Del Norte Center has been looked at for many of these purposes. And of course, we want to do things as efficiently as we possibly can, the least amount of transport that Committee Member McDonald mentioned. The fact that we have to eventually, we have a tacit agreement that we're going to phase out the organics processing facility, the location of that facility, and its interaction with and its effect on Ormond Beach. So this lot next to the MRF is a tremendous strategic asset of the city. I mean, tremendous strategic asset. And I have to admit, I have not long, but I've looked at and even mused the idea that that lot or even part of that lot could be used for either temporarily housing the homeless and dealing with their items that they have, and that being very close to the recycling facility, because some items might, they need to be discarded and others maybe perhaps not, and then even in some kind of employment program for those homeless. So I have to admit, just to get that out front, that's crossed my mind. But when we see the public works value of this, when we see that we have these very aggressive greenhouse emissions targets that we need to meet, this whole idea of composting is absolutely amazing. It's really exciting. I mean, I have to admit, some of these subjects don't interest a lot of people, but I think the thought of taking this organic compost and developing a system that processes it much more quickly is great. Yeah, here's my final thing here. It's ultimately going to come down to, I think, getting all the options narrowed down, and side by side, we look at a column and we look at those 4, 5, and 6, and maybe it'll expand by the time we make a decision that comes to Public Works. That side by side, we're going to evaluate the pros and cons, and I'm sure it's going to come down to 1 or 2 or 3 that are very, very close, but then ultimately that's where the policymaker advice and decision making comes in. So I really appreciate what my colleagues have had to say. I also like Committee Chair Perello. I like your idea of the rail spur. That's amazing. And here trains were one of the first methods of industrialization of travel of the era of industrialization, long before cars, and yet rails are still just as important today, potentially, as they ever have been. And I would like to see that rail component and the strategic asset fully exploited. Let me just put it that way. Thank you.
One more question. With respect to the sludge that was indicated in that your diagram, would it be possible to directly place the sludge in the sewer system at that site?
Tien will answer that question.
Okay, and the reason I ask, I know that there is some water treatment facilities in that general area, and I don't know how they handle their salts and stuff. Maybe there's a possibility of blending the salt so that we get some kind of liquefaction of the basically looks like a milkshake, and thin it out and it would flow in our sewer system versus having to truck it and save funds that way?
Mr. Chair, this is Tian, Assistant Public Works Director. The emulsion that generated prior to injecting to the digester is too thick. It's typically the quality is more like, in the morning when you eat your oatmeal, that kind of thicknesses. If you put it down to the sewer, we'll probably have to clean the sewer weekly.
We got problems. Okay, point taken. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Ninji. Another brilliant idea of Barolo here. Jeez.
By the way, it's nice that you refer to it as a milkshake, but it's only a milkshake if you're a microbe.
But yeah, I got it. Well, and I am serious, ladies and gentlemen. That question that I asked about who's going to have to open the bags of the food product, you don't want, having worked as a swamper on a garbage truck, you don't want that job. You do not want that job. Okay, do we have a recommendation from the council?
It was just receive and file and offer comment, I believe.
We'd be, council members, but we would like.
You need something about the grant,
any
correct?
direction. So Councilmember McDonald, given where we're headed with doing the feasibility study, but I think I heard you say you also wanted us to open it up for some sort of public input with regard to other options that are possible there?
Yes.
Is that something you want us to do concurrently with the study, or should we wait until we have the study results?
If you can do it concurrently, I just think that there's a lot of opportunity out there. What I'd like to do is provide staff with the names of the people that I've been talking with and have them reach out to them directly and just see potentially what kind of interest, if any, might be out there. I don't think that needs to go to council for them to proceed that direction, does it?
Right. I think that makes sense, because then when we conclude our study, we can present to this committee and then the council all the options with regard to the organics requirements, as well as any other options for that property. So that makes sense.
Okay, thank you.
We'll do
My
that.
hope was that just that we start some sort of communication and outreach without making any commitment.
Thank you.
So is it, Mr. Ng, I'm sorry, Mr. Nguyen, city manager, do we need just a receive and file, or do we need an action because of the grant application?
No, receive and file is fine. Thank you, sir.
I'll make a motion to receive and file this. Do we have a second, please?
I don't think we take a vote. You just receive and file and it's done.
Okay, receive and file, and it's done. Moving on to the next item. Items for future agendas. The previous meeting, the Finance and Governance, there was a discussion about bringing all the items for future agendas that have been suggested at one time, possibly the next meeting, so that we can clean house and figure out what we've taken care of, what hasn't, and prioritize it. I'd like to consider that and any suggestions my committee members have for future items on the agenda.
Mr. Chair, the only thing I have kind of hanging out there in limbo, and I kind of backed off on it, waiting for this to be done, was taking a look at quiet zones for railroad crossings in the central part of the city area. I know at one time there was a committee that was looking at that with the Port of Hueneme. It kind of fell by the wayside, but that's the only thing I have still hanging out there in terms of fresh fruit.
Okay, Mayor? Well, I'd like to throw this in. I believe it's been addressed in the past, a question of mine, and I know that Councilman McDonald is on the transportation, more on the train thing, but I'd like to get some sort of response of what is needed to get the train route going from here through the Santa Clara Valley to get to I-5, to connect us with that, where the trains have been, where the Santa Clara River took out the train track and it has not been repaired. The train doesn't go all the way through. That would be a tremendous impact to our area with the connection to the harbor and everything else. And I just, what do we need to do, or an update, not just the fact that it doesn't run? What's the rigmarole? Who do we tail do we have to crank to get something done, to, if we wanted to get something done? Those are my suggestions. Mayor, do you have anything you want to add? Going once. Mayor. Okay,
He just rejoined the call, so you may want to ask him again.
okay. Mayor, do you have anything you want to add for items for future agendas? Okay, and,
Mr. Chair, did you want to try and call Ms. Cartagena again?
yeah, and I'll tell you what, if the mayor does come up with items on future agendas, we'll have that, but before we adjourn, one more shot at Ms. Lucy Cartagena, please, Madam Clerk. And thank you, Brian.
For Families First, please leave a message and I will return your.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Ms. Cartagena, I'm sorry, we tried at the beginning and at the end of the meeting, we were not able to make contact. Mayor, have you been able to hook up here and any items on future agendas? If not, Brian, any last words?
No, I'm good.
Okay, all right. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank
You
you.
all.